Hi, my name is Kelly Davies, and this is my Understanding Diversity project. I am a white female with Irish and German descent. My family and I are not religious, but I grew up with a best friend who was Christian, and I learned a lot about their religion. I also had a friend in school who was Buddhist, and that was an amazing opportunity for me to be immersed into as a young adult. I was diagnosed with ADHD at the age of 30, so just 1 year ago, and I'm still navigating that diagnosis and finally finding ways to cope and find strategies to help me in my daily life now that I understand why I am the way that I am. The only language I speak is English, but I started learning American Sign Language in the first years of college and would love to proceed with that. Eventually, I would like to learn Spanish as well, since I will become an educator, and many non-English speaking students we receive in my state speak Spanish or Russian. Overall, I'm not a very diverse person, but when you look at my cultural biography, but I enjoy learning about others' differences and fully understanding what makes each person different and unique, and how to interact in the best way with each person I encounter throughout my life. My future career is to be a special education teacher. My mom was a paraprofessional in numerous special education high school classrooms throughout my childhood, so there were many times that I'd come to work with her and experience what she did for a living. She also worked as a transitional coach for those who graduated high school and were learning necessary skills to live independently. I eventually followed in her footsteps and became a paraprofessional as well. But my passion was to work with younger students, and I worked in a preschool classroom for 3 years. I also spent 2 years as a job coach for adults 17 and older with disabilities who needed to learn job skills and build their resume. I will be graduating with my bachelor's degree from Arizona State University at the end of this quarter. Then I will spend the next 2 to 3 years focusing on being a great mom. And the final goal is to complete my last year of school to become a certified teacher and work with 1st through 3rd graders. I realized that I'm very unfamiliar with Asian culture, and I felt that it was important to become more familiar with it in light of the recent pandemic and the racism that has come with it. We also have a large population of Asian students in the town next to mine, which means I could easily have Asian students in my future career. It's important to understand the cultural aspects of these students and adults in order to interact in the most respectful and knowledgeable way possible. I've learned a little bit about English language learners as well, but my knowledge is limited, so I wanted to learn more, since I feel like knowing how to educate non-English speaking students is an important aspect of being a great teacher. I also realized that any knowledge I have of English language learners has been focused around Spanish-speaking students and adults, so I wanted to learn the difference of teaching students of other languages and cultures. I feel that it is important to understand this intersectionality in order to understand my students and students' parents' learning styles, behaviors, and reactions to things, and how they act and interact around others. Throughout my research, I started by focusing on each individual aspect of the intersectionality before I found research that included both Asian culture and English language learning. All my research came from the internet, but I tried to find a variety of resources including videos, articles, interviews, and case studies. I would like to share my knowledge and research with others who may encounter this intersectionality in their future career. Although many English language learning techniques can be used with students of different languages, Spanish is the main focus when teaching teachers these strategies, so oftentimes recognizing the cultural differences of other cultures and languages can be overlooked. In this article, I learned that there are 29 distinct subgroups and 4 major groups of Asian Americans, which are East Asian, Pacific Islander, South Asian, and Southeast Asian. It's important to be aware of immigrant types since some Asian Americans come from war, whereas others come from a stable life. And many other Asian Americans are born in the U.S. A big stereotype in the U.S. is that Asian Americans are smarter and that school and knowledge comes easily to them. But it's important to understand that Asian Americans are individuals too, and you cannot group them together in such a way. Asian Americans can have learning disabilities just like anyone else, lack of motivation, financial struggles, all the same as American students. Cultural differences may affect their learning style in comparison to American students as well. For example, respect for elders, deferred gratification and discipline, value of the educational achievements, respect for authority, feeling responsibility for relatives, and showing self-control are strong influences for Asian Americans, and differences in structure and organization as well. As an educator, it's important to be aware of all of these potential cultural differences in order to build relationships and a strong learning environment for your students. In addition to cultural differences, you need to be aware of the students and their parents' proficiency in English. Understand that their knowledge of the school environment may be different, since American school emphasizes independence, individualism, and competition, versus Asian classrooms that typically emphasize group settings. The informality between teachers and students may be challenging as well. Other techniques that are unique to Asian American students, whether they're English language learners or not, is to learn a few words in their language, utilize their family support system, don't assume that the student has had the same experiences as others, for example, birthday parties or Christmas celebrations, and consider peer teaching instead of asking the student to speak in front of the entire class or a large group of peers. In order to understand Asian culture and diversity within a classroom and help a group be more accepting of their peers' differences, you can teach about languages, literature, traditions, arts, music, cuisine, festivals, religion, and values. You can expose different philosophies and beliefs in order to challenge biases. You can integrate history lessons throughout your curriculum to better understand where the cultural values come from, and emphasize current events and contributions. This next article reviews the aspects of Asian Americans within the United States. Some key factors are that Asian American and Pacific Islanders are one of the top growing racial and ethnic groups within our country. Poverty is another issue among Asian American children and families. Educators not being aware of cultural differences of Asian Americans versus Pacific Islanders have affected the students' behavior and punishments unfairly. For example, out-of-school suspension rates are higher for Pacific Islander boys than the Asian American boys. Another issue is that only 2% of teachers are Asian Americans, which can make it harder for students to connect with their teachers. When it comes to understanding these students and the challenges they face within American schools is to understand each student's cultural differences, but to also preserve their natural language and encourage the use of it when possible, especially at home. Understand the student and their family's immigration status, and to promote mental health as they are introduced into a new learning environment and culture. I included an educator toolkit, which was some strategies and helpful websites for teachers to use when dealing with English language learners. This included Kahoot, which you can create interactive audio-visual learning games, reviews, and assessments. National Geographic Kids has videos, images, games, and more for students to learn multiple subjects in an audio-visual way. Duolingo is a free language learning app that offers courses such as English as a second language, and it's also geared towards adults as well as kids. And lastly, BBC Teach has an extensive collection of free teaching resources in over 30 subjects. My big takeaways were that I was surprised to learn how many Asian subgroups there are. Many teaching courses that focus on English language learning focus on Spanish-speaking students and focus on techniques within the classroom, but they do not explain the importance of understanding the student's cultural background. So understanding those differences and how that affects you as an educator was very surprising to me and very helpful. Asian American students are the second largest group to Spanish English language learners, and their cultural differences greatly affect the way that they learn and interact within a classroom. So I'm surprised by how little importance is made to understanding these differences, these cultural differences, and I'm also surprised that Asian Americans are not discussed more in English language learning classes. Thank you.